Okay, so for the next section, which is on speech and language, I'm going to turn it over to Hillary, who is Jacob's speech-language pathologist.
All right, so first off, the time that I have spent with Jacob as a special education teacher and as art teacher, I've said he's very enthusiastic. He participates in all the activities I have set up for him, especially hands-on. He enjoys those very much. So I'm going to briefly talk about what the testing that I've done with him, what that indicates. The first thing is that he has reduced vocabulary skills. Underneath that, as the art teacher has said, his two-step directions. We've been working on that, but he has difficulty with that, as well as verbalizing sentences that are greater than 3 words. What we've seen so far is his average length of utterance is 2.7 words.
What does that mean? 2.7 words? That sounds funny.
Yeah, it does sound interesting. It's based on an average, so that means the combination of his words in a sentence throughout, a normal day. So if you were to say, "Hello, Jill," and then another sentence say, "See you tomorrow," you'd be averaging those sentences together, so 3 and 2 words, so it isn't just part of a word.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So Jacob is also able to complete his tasks. It's just he has difficulty comprehending what items are needed in order to begin the task as well as finish a task. So while we're participating in it, it seems to be fine. It's just that initial to get the task going and to end it. And then when we are working on an activity, he has difficulty asking for assistance. Especially when gathering the necessary items to complete the activity and working initially in that task. The other thing I was going to briefly touch on is he struggles to understand appropriate proximity to his peers and teachers, as I'm sure you know at home. He's touching or smelling his peers' hair, or he's very loving and hugs freely, which a lot of people enjoy, but there are students and teachers who are uncomfortable by that. So that's what I have seen and tested him on so far. So now I'm going to go over the goals that we've set up for his speech language. We're going to start with goal number 1. Jacob will verbalize up to 5 items needed in order to complete a speech activity without prompting in 4 out of 5 opportunities as measured over 3 consecutive data collection sessions. So, and as I go through this, please stop me if you have any questions. As far as the short-term objectives, Jacob will verbalize up to 5 items needed in order to complete a speech activity without prompting in 3 out of 5 opportunities as measured over 3 consecutive data collection sessions. The next part is Jacob will verbalize up to 5 items needed in order to complete a speech activity without prompting in 2 out of 5 opportunities as measured over 3 consecutive data collection sessions. So that's his first goal. His second goal is Jacob will follow verbal and/or picture 2-step directions in 4 out of 5 opportunities as measured over 3 consecutive data collection sessions. Those short-term objectives is the first one is Jacob will follow verbal and/or printed 2-step directions in 2 out of 5 opportunities as measured over 3 consecutive data collection sessions. So his third goal is Jacob will ask for help when necessary without prompting and verbalizing what type of assistance is needed in 4 out of 5 opportunities as measured over 3 consecutive data collection sessions. Those short-term objectives are Jacob will ask for help when necessary without prompting and verbalize what type of assistance is needed in 3 out of 5 opportunities as measured over 3 consecutive data collection sessions. Jacob will ask for help when necessary without prompting and verbalize what type of assistance is needed in 2 out of 5 opportunities as measured over 3 consecutive data collection sessions. So I know it's a lot to take in, but are you following?
I am.
Okay.
So what are the goals for Jacob for each one?
All right. So the fourth one is Jacob will increase his average length of utterance to 3.5 as indicated throughout through speech sampling over 3 consecutive data collection sessions. As far as the short-term objectives go, Jacob will increase his average length of utterance to 2.9 as indicated through speech sampling over 3 consecutive data collection sessions. And Jacob will increase his average length of utterance to 3.2 as indicated through speech sampling over 3 consecutive data collection sessions. All right, and as far as his last goal, this is during a speech language activity and with 1 verbal prompt, Jacob will move to the appropriate distance between himself and a teacher or peer in 4 out of 5 opportunities as measured over 3 consecutive data collection sessions. As far as breaking those down, during the speech language activity and with 1 verbal prompt, Jacob will move to the appropriate distance between himself and a teacher or peer in 3 out of 5 opportunities as measured over 3 consecutive data collection sessions.
Can I interrupt you for a minute?
Absolutely.
So these make sense to me, but how are they all going to be addressed? I mean, what does that look like in practice? And specifically, the distance. How do you guys deal with that? Because I deal with that at home as well, so I want to make sure that we're kind of on the same page.
Well, what we've done is the 6-inch rule. So, as well as no contact without asking. He, especially with hugging, we like to say to shake hands instead of hugging. And we use reminders, so that means if he gets too close, we say, give whoever some room, and then you can use the arm's length distance as well. Maybe Jill could touch on that. She's with him most of the day, so I don't know what she does.
I think we've also shared with many of the students in his class to just tell Jacob, please give me my space, and he's really good about backing off. So it doesn't have to be an adult necessarily going to him and telling him no hugs or whatever. It actually comes from the student too, so the students are very on board with this.
Okay, good. And then so the other objectives though, can you give me an example of
Absolutely.
how that would be put into practice?
Yeah, so I see Jacob for a total of 45 minutes throughout the week. It's split up into 2 different sessions. The first one is 30 minutes, and that's group time. We have it with 3 different kids as well as Jacob. And that usually consists of playing games, which is beneficial for him as he has to ask for what he wants. It's making sure what he's saying is understandable to everyone that's participating, and just participating conversation back and forth, the give and take that requires. And then there's 15 minutes that's individual, which he works with me on phonics. So we work a lot with pronunciation, using his tongue. Right now we're working on wa and the difference between those, and he's doing very well so far. I also wanted to mention that during that 15-minute time, he also works with his occupational therapist, and he does his baking. And so where he's working on his gross and fine motor skills, he's also working with me. So we combine our time with that. So
Okay.
does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Yep. All right, so I think we have to finish up just the last we went through the measurable goal, but this last one. During a speech language activity and with 1 verbal prompt, Jacob will move to the appropriate distance between him and himself and teacher or peer in 2 out of 5 opportunities as measured over 3 consecutive data collection sessions. So your questions are answered about the proximity. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. So I think that I covered everything, and you don't have any more questions. All right, then I'm going to hand it back over to Bryn, who's going to talk about written expression.
Great, well, thanks so much, Hillary. That was very informative. Okay, so the last section that we need to talk about in terms of his goals is written expression. So Jacob is able to write 26 letters, all the letters of the alphabet, but he does mix up the cases when he writes his letters. I'm sure you've seen he writes some of them uppercase, some of them lowercase. That's not too much of a concern. He can write all of his personal information, which is so important for safety issues. He can write his parents' name, his address, his phone number, in case he needs to communicate that. Some of his challenges are that he does not leave enough space between the words, and that makes it difficult to read. And also his handwriting is not quite as legible as we would like, which again, for someone who doesn't know him, can make it difficult to understand what he's trying to communicate to us. So recently, what we've had him do is type out some of those notes so that he is able to communicate with us what he needs. And I'm sure you've seen those when we sent them home, talking about what he's done during the day, and these typed up. Also, something to mention is that he is able to spell 3 of the 10 words at the first grade level when they are dictated to him. So writing and spelling are areas that we need to work on with Jacob. So do you have any questions on writing? The summary so far?
No.
Okay, so then we have 3 goals for Jacob in written expression. The first is, given an envelope, Jacob will copy addresses, return addresses legibly, with space between the words, with 3 errors or less. And we have 2 objectives under this goal. The first being, given an envelope, Jacob will copy his personal return address legibly using abbreviations for city, state, with space between the words and 3 or less errors. And the second objective, given an envelope, Jacob will copy mailing addresses legibly with space between the words and with 3 errors or less. Any questions? Mo, did you?
Yeah, I do. I'm just wondering why it's important to focus on handwriting at this point. If Jacob is doing well with his keyboarding and his typing skills, should we spend more time with that and less time on handwriting?
It's a great question. So does Jacob use a computer at home? Do you have a computer in your home for him? Okay. Well, one of my concerns then, we can definitely focus more on keyboarding, certainly. One of my concerns is though, if Jacob is out and about and he doesn't have access to a computer and he needs to write something down, he needs to be able to communicate that legibly so someone can understand what he's writing.
That's true.
So that's where that goal was kind of coming from there. Or if you want to, send a letter, he's not going to be able to type that out on the front of his envelope. So do you feel comfortable with his goals?
Yeah, I do. I hadn't thought about that when he wouldn't have access to a computer, but he's not going to be carrying around a computer and a printer with him all the time. So
Okay,
that makes sense.
Great. Okay, yeah, and we'll definitely focus more though on keyboarding and typing, and we've been incorporating that in this program. So
Good.
Okay, so the second goal is that given a staff written note about his day created with Jacob's input, he will type it with 2 or less errors. And he has 2 objectives for this goal. The first being, given a staff written note about his day created with Jacob's input, Jacob will type it with 10 or less errors. And then for his second objective, given a staff written note about his day created with Jacob's input, he will type it with 5 or less errors. So we're working up to typing it with 2 or less errors. And then we have one more goal to cover in written expression, and this goal is related to spelling. Given spelling words at the first grade level, Jacob will complete daily activities that include identifying beginning and ending sounds and the pattern CVC, CVCE, so consonant, vowel, consonant, and showing mastery on a weekly test with 80% accuracy. And again, we have 2 objectives under this goal. The first is, given spelling words at the first grade level, Jacob will complete daily activities, which include the identification of the beginning and ending sounds, and he will demonstrate mastery on a weekly test with 80% accuracy. And finally, his last objective for this goal, given spelling words at the first grade level, Jacob will complete daily activities to learn CVC, CVCE, and will show mastery on the weekly test of those skills with 80% accuracy. So that's for spelling. Okay. Now, is there any questions on written expression or overall on any of Jacob's goals? I know we discussed a lot of questions during that, so.
Nothing else at this point.
Okay.